Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Pursuing Wholeness podcast. My name is Precious Jewel, and today I'll be sharing how I'm healing after divorce. So, the fact that I'm here today discussing how to heal after divorce is still very shocking to me. Divorce is something that I never imagined I would have to go through. Just a little background on me. I grew up in church, very conservative, and we just didn't believe in divorce. It was something that was very frowned upon. And even though I did not grow up in a home where marriage was modeled for me, I did hold tightly to those values. So going into marriage, divorce was never an option for me. So when me and my ex-husband separated, I was obviously devastated. I had gained a lot of weight, I was depressed and completely broken. It was hard for me to come to terms with the fact that I was the girl who had a prayer journal for her husband before I ever met him. I prayed and fasted to be sure that I wasn't marrying the wrong person. We did marital counseling. We read a ton of books, and it still wasn't working. It still was falling apart. But I was determined to somehow turn it around. During the beginning of the separation, I prayed constantly. I had others pray and fast with me. I had scriptures posted all over my little one-bedroom apartment, just declaring healing and restoration over our marriage. Then I received news that forced me to come to terms with reality. It was really over. My purpose in sharing this isn't to deter anyone from fighting for their marriage. I am 100% pro-marriage, and I do not regret fighting as hard as I did for mine. I'm simply sharing my experience. There are some toxic teachings in Christian culture, specifically directed towards women regarding marriage, that I wasn't aware of until I went through my divorce. I was led to believe that if I followed a certain set of guidelines, it was a guarantee that things would turn around. And while I do know that this can and does happen, it is not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee because we all have free will. No matter how much I prayed, fasted, believed, etc., my spouse would have had to accept what God could do in him and in our marriage. God does not force us to accept him. He gives us choice. The same is true in that you cannot force someone to choose you. I say this not to discourage anyone from fighting for their marriage, but to free anyone carrying the guilt of a failed marriage or a spouse who abandoned them. Once I accepted the fact that our marriage was over, there had already been a long process of separation. Anyone who has gone through divorce knows that it doesn't just happen overnight. I did much of my grieving during the marriage and in the beginning stages of separation, so when it ended, I mostly felt relief. But I knew I still needed to be intentional about my healing process. The first thing I had to do was accept that God had forgiven me. I could not carry the weight of the guilt and shame of divorce. It would have crushed me. Next, I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself for and own up to my part in the failure of the marriage, because it is never just one-sided. Even if you feel like your spouse was 98% of the problem and you were 2%, own your 2%. Chances are they believe they are the 2% and you're the 98%. I had to forgive myself for allowing my boundaries to be crossed, forgetting who I was, and not going with my instinct. I had to learn to trust myself again and trust that I could make right decisions. Once I forgave myself, I had to forgive my spouse. I was only able to do so because I accepted forgiveness from God. Forgiveness is not a one-time event. It's a process, a decision you make over and over to not be bound by what this person did to you. I allow myself to feel all the feelings. I'm not rushing my process of grief. In the beginning of the separation, I found myself distracted a lot, and I realized it was because I didn't want to sit in my pain. I would do anything to not have to go home and face my feelings. But I've learned to acknowledge my feelings and not try to brush them off as insignificant. My feelings are an indication of the pain I'm experiencing and need to be dealt with. I've learned to acknowledge that there is pain, allow myself to feel it fully, and then find healthy ways to cope with it, such as journaling, writing, going for a run, sharing what I'm feeling with a trusted friend or counselor. Having a strong support system has been vital in this time. During this time, I've had to cling to God's word. 2 scriptures I clung to were Psalms 147:3, which says, "He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, healing their pain and comforting their sorrow." And Psalm 34:18, "The Lord is near to the heartbroken, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit." I'm thankful that God truly keeps his promises, and in this season, he has been so close. Worship has helped me heal because worship helps us fix our gaze on Jesus and not on our problems. It gives us proper perspective because we see how big God is and how small our problems are in comparison. I have prioritized time alone. It's also important to recognize the difference between isolating yourself in an unhealthy way and prioritizing alone time. I'm an introvert, so I need alone time to recharge. But I make sure to spend a healthy amount of time with friends and family. However, I do not apologize when I just need time alone. My alone time has helped me rediscover myself, what I like and don't like, who I want to be, and what I want to do. I take myself out to dinner, take myself to get a mani-pedi, or I stay home and binge watch a show on Netflix. I enjoy my own company. One way you know you are becoming whole is you don't need others to feel complete. God and you become enough. I've been intentional about not dating or getting into a relationship. There are some exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, if you enter into a new relationship while you haven't healed yet, you will find yourself going through the same things and the same problems will arise. You have to deal with yourself and heal. You have to know who you are. We all know people who jump from relationship to relationship and they take on the identity of whoever it is that they are with at the time because they have no idea who they are. Spend time with God and discover who He created you to be. I'm kind to myself. I try to treat myself the way I would a good friend. I would never be harsh and overcritical to a friend. I strive to always be gracious and kind. So I extend that same grace to myself. I'm healing, learning, and growing. There's no need to be unkind to myself. I set boundaries. I protect my peace. If certain people cause me to feel uneasy, I don't force myself to be around them. I don't go where I'm not celebrated and valued. I regularly assess my relationships. I distance myself when needed. I'm not investing in relationships that are toxic and unhealthy. And finally, I set goals and crush them. Setting a goal and then crushing it is a sure way to build confidence. I hope you found these tips on how to heal after divorce helpful. I pray that something said in this episode has helped you in your pursuit of wholeness. I'm so excited to hear your stories. Thank you for joining me on this journey.